Hey everyone, Karen the Web Spinster here. Thank you for joining me today. Now, we've been working on this and I have some more ideas. I'm just kidding. I really wouldn't do that to you, although, you know, it's not that bad, right? I did finish, do a couple more of the rings here on the cabbage or the stadium checkers or whatever we're making at this point. And then I opted to add another lighter green down here so that it gives me the option to do this as sort of a quarter of a circle. And up here, well, as I got to the sides and I was thinking about cutting them like this, I decided there's no reason they can't be curved, which would add a little bit of interest to it, make it a little more organic than if I just had straight lines. And they could be wonky straight lines, didn't have to be a 90-degree corner in there, but I decided I was going to do that. But I do want some other things. Repeating this sort of thing I think would be great. You could make a half circle, quarter circle, whatever you wanted, and I think it would look great. And that might be another option. Say if I make this into an entire quilt, I could do another one similar to this and just make a quilt out of all of that. But I want to try a couple of other things today. Before we do that, however, I just wanted to show you that I do finish things. Let me see if I can zoom this out without making you dizzy. I did finish this piece, and you know, I was posting it on Instagram and Facebook, and I thought, well, that's really rude. I haven't yet shared it with the people who were with me on the ride to do this in the first place. So I apologize for that. In fact, I meant to do this last week and forgot again. So I did finish up this piece. I decided I didn't want these to run off the edge after all, so I added some more white on 3 sides, and then this side it's just coming off from the side, as you can see. And I decided that when I was trying to decide if I wanted the stripe or the black binding, I decided, you know, I could have both. So I put this over on this side. For some reason, this corner to me is the one that wants more weight for my eye. So I put the solid black on this side and then the stripes over here. I always was going to put black on the bottom so that the weight is down there, but there's just something about the lower right corner that is significant for me, I guess. Anyway, so this is finished, and I've called it Channel only because I was doing this with you all on my YouTube channel. So this is called Channel, in tribute to all of you. Thank you for being along with me and encouraging me. And this is just to prove that I do actually finish some of the things that I've started. Now, that is not necessarily my aim coming into this. I don't necessarily need to make things that are going to end up being a quilt, but there are some things that I just really like as I go along and want to do something with. You remember this was salvaging a block that was really pretty bad. I'd call it a meh block, but it was really block. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. So, and then for the quilting, I did this on my domestic machine, and I just drew diagonal lines and then just sort of echoed out from that. So that's Channel. All right, back to this piece. There is some soiling here. I did end up doing a thorough cleaning on Emily. She's now clean, and I'll work on cleaning up some of that. Must have been something on the bottom of the iron or maybe on the wool mat, but I will work on cleaning that up. Overall, I'm pleased with this piece, and I'm ready to start on another one that I think is going to go on one side or the other of this one. Oh, I did want to show you that stripe. Really wasn't just out of the blue. As I was working on my latest quilt Halfway Round, which I'm going to start quilting tomorrow, I took some of the pieces that I had left over and decided that I really kind of liked the black stripe in between. It's kind of a mesmer kaleidoscopy kind of thing. And I would want the stripes to go this way. That one, of course, is cut on the bias, and this one is straight. So, or even a 3/4 one would be kind of cool. Or 3 of these and 1 of those, but that's another story. Squirrel is gone. Now, for the next piece on here, after looking at the cabbage, and you could see that the various leaves are kind of stacked on each other as you come out from the center. So I wanted to give that effect, but I didn't necessarily want to fussy with the piecing of sort of random curves going. I could do it, would take forever, and it would probably frustrate me. So I'm at least not wanting to do that today, shall we say. So I decided I would try a couple of things. One of them is bias strips. And so I used my Clover bias strip makers, and I will try. I'm not very good about remembering to put the links down in my, I will try to remember to put a link to the video where I showed how to use these. So I made one that is a 1/4 inch wide. This one's a 1/2 inch wide. I cut a 1/2 inch bias strip to use in this 1/4 inch maker, and then an inch wide to cut this 1/2 inch. Then I'm not sure that oh, just had an idea. I was thinking this may be too wide, but I had an idea. Ooh, stay tuned. And then I decided I wanted to make one sort of in between. So these are 2 different colors of white. This is a very pale, it's a pale cream, that's a very pale cream. They may look the same on camera, but they are a little bit different. So then I can, a friend on Facebook responded to a post asking what is the most annoying expression or things people say, and he said "so" at the beginning of things. So sorry about this, John. John doesn't watch, so it doesn't matter. But so I want to do something like this, where they're kind of following each other in a curve, but not really. And so it mimics the, "so" is a very useful word, so that it mimics those leaves stacking on top of each other when you cut open the cabbage. This one, as I thought, might be a little too wide for my purposes, but, and this again is probably going to be something like this. And this does not have to be a solid piece here. I could start out with perhaps this, and I chose this fabric because, well, I got it from my stash, and I just noticed this morning that it's got this kind of look to it. It looks like pulled threads or nubby yarn, boucle yarn, but I don't necessarily want that going all the way up. If I do this color somewhere in between, I don't think I want to. I think I want these to all be the white color, cream color, and all of these to be plain or solid colors or print fabrics. Let me grab a couple more here. I think this green just is not right, so that goes back in the stash. This one would be okay. I might want a light strip in between it, or I could actually just sew it and put that on top of it. I could repeat this again, which wouldn't be a bad idea. And then I have this lighter color here. So I could stack up some pretty good curves, and they can be gentle curves. And I don't know that I'll do the branching on these. All right, I'm going to start off with, I think maybe this one. I want this one further up because I really like that effect, and I want to be able to see more of that. So I think that will go further up. I think I'll start with this one, which will be this sort of corner piece, I guess. And I know that these are different greens, but this is nature. Nature has lots of different greens going on. And I could temper it a bit with some solids in between. That sort of soften the blow between them. Those are actually about the same color. I think what I'll do is just do some gentle curves on a quarter circle-y idea. And then we'll come back and I'll do like 4 of them maybe. And then we'll come back and do some bias tapey and a couple other ideas, maybe. Bias tape anyway, by the end of today. So I'm off to do some curves, just the same old thing that I've been doing all along. You can check out the previous, I think we started out with, it was stadium checkers, then it was lettuce somewhere in there. Then it became a bandshell, and now we're back to cabbage. So you can look up those previous videos where I go over doing the curves. So gentle curves, 4 of them coming right up. I actually did 5 rings because I wanted kind of a buffer in between these two. Now, and you can see I left a lot of stuff off to the side here, just so I had some leeway to do many other things, and so that I could, if I decide to do a curve over, oh, that doesn't look half bad, does it? If I decide to do curves here, then I've got lots of leeway for that. I originally thought I was going to need to make this pretty narrow, because this piece that I had, I thought was cut the opposite direction, the 90 degrees. And I wanted these stripes to be going this direction, not, although, you know, that way wouldn't have been bad either, but not for what I'm going to do with this. But I realized that I had a long enough piece, so I actually made it larger. I can always cut it down. Now, and as I was putting these together, it's kind of nice that those match up in a way, but I think I would want to offset them something like that, so who knows what's going to happen down here. That's not what I'm worrying about today. Now, I could take one of these bias strips and like do something curvy in between these, but I don't think I want to do that. I want to just do them across something like this, and I think I may want another one of this size. This 1/4 inch is just a really nice size, isn't it? And then I could do another one that isn't following exactly the same, but kind of the same curve, and just applique those on. What I was thinking about with these wider ones, I was thinking this one's too wide. What if we did a decorative stitch down the middle of that? And then that would add another layer, visually speaking anyway. First, however, I am going to lay down one of these 1/4 inch tapes and just kind of meander. I'm wondering if I want to couch that though, or just do the buttonhole-y edge kind of stitch. Let's start with just a plain buttonhole or zigzag stitch on it. And I'm going to use white thread because this is pretty close to white, and white is loaded in my machine. I used just a plain zigzag. My machine was set at 2.5 wide and 1.5, which is the default for the length of the stitch. I think as I got to these steeper curves, although they aren't very steep, going around the curves, I think I would shorten that stitch up down to 1.0 or something. But I'm okay with that. I'm pretty happy with that stitch is fine. If you've got a machine like a featherweight that does just straight stitches, you could certainly stitch down the edges. You could use a double needle if you wanted to stitch it down. I'm not worried about raveling edges here because it's turned under. The tape edges are turned under. So that would not be a problem. I started off pretty mildly here, very gently, and then I decided that was no fun, so I made it more curvy. I think I want to do another 1/4 inch one here, maybe. Maybe I'll try this, whatever I did in the middle. Didn't really measure it. I may give that a go and then come back with that one and then do maybe another 1/4 inch one. I'll talk about what I think I want to do here with this one that's pretty wide. And I have a couple other ideas which may wait till next time. But let me get these next two on. So I'm going to do a medium. And I kind of want to follow that curve, but not exactly. Because as the leaves stack, they're going to kind of follow it, but not exactly. So that's what I'll do. I think that will look all right, because that's the main consideration. I don't need this to look like cabbage. That's just the inspiration to help me to focus on what I do with this and the decisions that I make. I will do this one, a 1/4 inch one, and then come back and we'll talk about this one. And we have some leaf curves. Pretty happy with those. I think I really like the 1/4 inch better than this one, but this adds a little bit of something to it. My thought on this wider one, and wider ones, of course, you can't do quite the curves that you can with the narrower because you've got more fabric to maneuver around. You can do curves for sure, but not as steep as you can do with the wider ones. So my first thought was to do a decorative stitch in green down the middle of this and then add it on here. But I don't know if that stitching will act as sort of a stay stitching and prevent it from curving much at all. So then my second choice might be to do a decorative stitch down the middle of this medium-sized one. That's probably 3/8 of an inch maybe. And that would break up the width a little bit, put a little more green back on top there. But I just want to try that now. I'm not at all sure that I want to use this wide bias strip anyway, but I'm going to give that a try and just see if that acts as a stay stitch. By the way, I am using stabilizer on the back before I stitch these on, and one advantage of that is if I decide to do a decorative stitch on top of there, I already have the stabilizer. The other option might be, because these bias tapes fold under and meet in the middle, if I did a decorative stitch down the middle, that would hold it down. It might leave some sort of flappy edges. Depending on how you want to quilt it, that may be a problem. Or you could do a wide enough decorative stitch that it holds down the edges pretty well too. So I think I am going to give that a try, a decorative stitch down the middle with this, and not plan to do full coverage of it across there, but not just like a straight stitch down the center either. I will go find some green thread and give that a go, and I'll report back to you. I might do kind of a fun, modern sort of stitch down the middle. As long as I'm trying it, I may end up liking it. And I suppose that as I go further up, maybe wider would be more appropriate. Or maybe it would be the other way around. I don't know. I'll have to find green thread. Now I'm sure all of you said to yourselves, well, duh, Karen. So now I'm saying, well, duh, Karen. I was cruising happily along and I thought, well, let me do it straight and see if that affects the curve. But I can always do the curve as I'm stitching here and then just stitch it onto the quilt. But of course, if I have stabilizer there, it is not going to curve. So this part of it is, you know, when I want a straight line of that, that will be just fine. But if I want to do it this way, where I do the stitching before I apply it, then I'm going to have, of course, have to do the curve as I'm doing this stitching. Now, I can try it without the stabilizer, but I think that's kind of asking for trouble. You know what? Maybe I'll stitch a little bit here that doesn't have the stabilizer, and I'll report back again. Investigative study. Well, it wasn't horrible, but it certainly isn't as crisp and nice as it is on stabilizer. You can see it a little, oops, sorry, there, did a blip right there. Pardon my thumb, still recovering. So it's not great. I can still do some curving. So if I'm willing to live with it not being quite as crisp as when I do it on stabilizer, then that will work. Now, how will this look if it goes back on here? It's not very much to test out, but whoop, honestly, Karen, pay attention. Not very much to test out. It certainly adds some interest in texture. I'm just thinking this is too thick for my purposes, too wide for my purposes. I might do something like that just down here, she says, as she doesn't put it in frame. I might do something like that down here. So I'm going to save that piece. I just don't know if my eye wants it to be wider to narrower or narrower to wider as I go up. I'm pretty sure I want wider and then narrower because that puts the weight at the bottom and my eye is just going to be happier with gravity working that way. And it will get lighter going upward. Lighter, narrower. Must be time for the video to end. Now I could do a stitch here. I'm not sure about that, so I don't think I will just yet. I would like at least one more of these 1/4 inch strips, maybe 2 more. And then I have a couple of things in mind for next time. Let's see how this is looking. Let me zoom out here. I think that's going to be kind of fun. I definitely want something more going on down here. I say definitely, and then I'm thinking, or do we want some space for the eye to rest? I wonder what it would be like to do the bias strips, excuse me, not in a color here, but in a print. Say this print, or this print is so definitely directional that way. I'm not sure, but I might alternate a white with a print down here just to kind of tie everything together. I'm trying to use largely the same sorts of fabrics. Of course, they're all green, but then I have ways to tie them together. So these two are the same fabric and these two are the same. I'm introducing new ones, but I'm also pulling in some that I've used over here And of course, also the cream colors. I think that might work, and I think I have a name for it. I think I'm going to call it Wild Hare in the Cabbage Patch. And of course, it could be either H-A-R-E or H-I-R. Mine is going to be H-I-R, I think, in honor of my dad. Not too long after my mom died, when I was down there, he and I went to his attorney's office to make me co-trustee of the estate. And mostly because he wanted to require someone to sign off on any large purchases, somebody else besides him. And he said he was worried about, being scammed. He's a very intelligent, logical, reasonable person, and he had a fear of being scammed as he got older. So he said, well, I'm just worried that I'll go off on some wild hare, and I want her to make sure to be my, stopgap, my safety net for that. And his attorney said, well, now, Jim, just what kind of wild hare are you talking about? And Dad said, I don't know, if, some sweet young thing wants me to go off to Tahiti. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know, Dad, you've worked hard all your life. If you want to go to Tahiti, I say, that'd be a nice break for you. He didn't like to travel, so I knew he wasn't going to do that, but that just cracked me up. Just what kind of wild hare are you thinking about? So this is going to be my wild hare in the Cabbage Patch. I like these two together. I think adding this in, some wild hares, really helps it. And this is a little misleading there. And I kind of like that curve is still organic. If I do something else, I don't know if I would do it over here or if I'd maybe go back and do something like this over here. I just don't know yet, but I like where it's at so far. I think. Next week I'll have a couple more ideas, and then that will probably do it until I start finishing things off. And this is one that I think I will finish. I am liking this one very much. And I'm having a lot of fun doing these curves here. Frankly, these branches are not my favorite thing to do. I mean, I can do them, not my favorite thing. These are more fun for me. I love these bias tape makers because you can make these narrow bias strips out of anything you want, and you aren't burning your fingers trying to turn them under manually. That will be it for this week. And next week we will continue with this a bit more. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace.